Hello and welcome to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. I was just checking out a souvenir shop here in Tusayan. I hope I pronounced that right. It's a small town on the south rim of the Grand Canyon. I thought I'd take you with me on a flight from here down to Sedona, Arizona. There's some beautiful scenery between here and Sedona, so I hope you enjoy the flight. Now that I've done my souvenir shopping and had a breakfast sandwich, let's drive the short distance to the airport where I'll show you the plane we'll be taking for this flight. I see you're eyeing up my little cart here. I find it's a great way to get around town when I'm not flying one of the airplanes in the simulator. I'll give you a moment to take in the view of this little cart. It's from Got Friends. It's a extra add-on to Microsoft Flight Simulator, downloadable through the marketplace. Let's get in and let's get going. We're only about a mile and a half here from Grand Canyon Airport, and should be a pleasant little drive. There's never any traffic when I've got it turned off in Flight Simulator. Otherwise, there could be traffic. I'm stuck inside the cart as I drive it, but you're allowed to view all around. So I'm going to give you some good external views as we drive here, and same thing when we fly. Let's see if there's any traffic. Nope, I do have it turned off. Good deal. This little town here is right on the southern rim of the Grand Canyon, so they've got a lot of hotels, you'll notice. A lot of tourist dollars come through here as people are enjoying the Grand Canyon. There's also some fairly large elk herds around this area, but the Grand Canyon National Park does not allow hunting, but Arizona Game and Fish does if you're not inside the park and you've got a proper tag for an elk. Some beautiful forest up here. I live a little further south in Arizona, down where it's all desert. But Sedona, where we're about to fly to, now that's a good mix between forest and desert. It's kind of where the forest starts to meet the desert. And to me, that's just beautiful. The beautiful red stones, a lot of sandstone, and gorgeous, gorgeous scenery with trees, but not quite as dense as we get in other parts of the north of Arizona. But just beautiful, beautiful mixture for me. Up here on the right, we're about to start seeing the airport, and as you can imagine, this airport does a lot of guided tours of Grand Canyon, so they've got a lot of helicopter operators and that sort of thing. It's a cute little airport, actually not that little, to be honest. It's got a nice long runway, and it's very nice. And in Flight Simulator, they've modeled it quite well. It's one of the better modeled airports, although there are a lot of airports in Flight Simulator that are modeled just fine. That's a helicopter tour operation right there, their headquarters. As we drive around here, you got to keep in mind this is a flight simulator, not a driving simulator, so the roads aren't modeled quite as well as airport facilities, runways, etc. It's meant to look beautiful when you're flying over it in an airplane. Not so much for driving in a car, but it works for us. Ooh, nice car. On the right side is all the parking for visitors and guests. And up here, very shortly on my left, is another helicopter operation that does Grand Canyon tours, and I've parked my airplane just outside of there. So let's pull in here, get a parking spot, and get to flying. What do you say? Okay, maybe not my best parking job, but that'll have to do for now. I'm not too worried about it. Let's kill that engine. Let's go check out this beautiful Mooney we're going to fly in. The plane we're going to be flying in is a Mooney Ovation. Gorgeous plane with a constant speed propeller, retractable gear. Beautiful, beautiful green and white paint job with silver, gold stripes. I think you'll like it. I chose it for this flight. Now, keep in mind, in Microsoft Flight Simulator, you have a lot of planes that are default. This one is not. This is an add-on plane that costs money from Carenado. There are plenty of developers creating planes for Microsoft Flight Simulator, so the sky's the limit, honestly. And as it says at the beginning of Flight Simulator, the sky is not the limit. I guess that's true. You can get a bunch of different planes for this, ones that are very detailed. And there are, of course, some people making ones that aren't quite as nicely detailed as this. So you got to keep an eye out and look at the reviews of airplanes before you decide to spend your hard-earned money on a add-on airplane. Now you'll notice this one has these little covers and stuff on it to keep birds from nesting in there, or in this case on the pitot tube to keep bugs from crawling in there or dust getting in there. And on this particular plane, we can't remove them from the outside. We have to go inside to do that. Most of the default, well, all of the default Microsoft airplanes that are built for 2024 and a lot of aftermarket ones, you can remove these by just clicking on them. In this case, though, we'll go ahead and go around and I'll show you how to remove them on this particular plane. This plane was natively built for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. And it imports great into 2024, and the details are beautiful, as you can tell, but it's lacking a few features it could have had if it had been made for 2024. Here we are inside. All right. What we're going to want to do is pull up a little tablet this plane has. There we go. And let's zoom in so you can see it a little bit there. And it has some options, as you can see on the screen. One of the things we're going to do is just remove all those external pieces. There we go. Let's go see what they look like. By the way, when you leave the plane in Flight Simulator, you always end up right over here. For whatever reason, when you get in or out, it puts you over on that side. There we go. Those covers are gone. And let's look over at the pitot tube too, because I'm sure that one's gone. Yep, it is. That works out good for us. It's a gorgeous Mooney Ovation, beautiful plane. It's set up with seating for 4, and the rear passengers have plenty of room. It is a little bit of a narrow plane, though, because Moonies are fast planes, and they were designed to be fast. And you can't make a plane fast if it's wide. You're going to make it wide with plenty of shoulder room, you're going to lose a lot of speed, or you're going to have to put a lot bigger engine in it to make it go fast, and that's not very efficient. Gorgeous modeling from the people at Carenado that did this. And they've done some really great ones. When you go into the marketplace, you can actually look at the ratings and see how planes are rated on a scale of 1 to 5, and it'll give you some idea about how well it's been done. If people think it was done really well, it'll get a high ranking. I find anything over 3.5 to 3.7 or higher is pretty good. If you're going to spend a lot of money, hopefully it's in the 4s. And if you're not spending much, you might get by with a 3.2 or so. Got the door open now, and I also opened that baggage compartment in back so you can see how much room is in a Mooney's baggage compartment. At least in this particular model, the Ovation. Some of the other ones did not have as much room in them at all and didn't have as much room for baggage. Of course, you got to watch your weight and balance when you're putting stuff in baggage, right? You don't want to put too much towards the rear of the plane, that's for sure. Plane that's balanced to the rear is a little bit twitchy, and too far and it becomes dangerous. It's a gorgeous paint job, and it has my custom number, November 6163 Yankee. All right, we can open and close the door both by clicking on the door and by clicking on this tablet. Works out really nice. Most planes have some sort of thing like a tablet or a notepad that you click on and open up. We'll go ahead and get her started here and get away on our trip. As I've said before, I'm kind of stuck inside the plane flying it, but I'm going to take you around it, outside of it, let you see some of the beautiful scenery that's in this Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. It does have beautiful scenery. And this particular scenery is set up at 1080p, but it can go up to 4K, especially if you have a very good video card and if you have the monitors to actually take advantage of that. It works out really well. There we are. She's come to life beautifully. I'll let you get an idea of what it sounds like from the outside. Good deal. Now, on this flight, we're going to go ahead and forego some of the ATC communications and even just communications with traffic in the area. When I fly normally, I do all of that, and I have an add-on app called Say Intentions that does a great job of simulating air traffic control, giving me clearances, giving me guidance, and doing all the things air traffic control would really do in real life. But on today's flight, let's not bore you with all of that. That's a little bit beyond the scope of this video, huh? I just want to show you how great Flight Simulator 2024 can be. And as I said, keep in mind the graphics could be even better than this. The recording of it makes it look even worse than I see it, and I only see it in 1080p because I don't do things in 4K, just not yet. Maybe in the near future. We're going to taxi over here to the runway, which is a nice long runway at Grand Canyon Airport here, so it's not really a problem taking off with a Mooney or just about anything else too. Even a small jet has no problem at all here. As I say, this airport has enhanced scenery. It's one of the more enhanced ones from Flight Simulator. However, you can get scenery online as well, and a lot of designers will do a great job with their scenery. And even the default airport scenery is not too bad at most airports. Certainly at the bigger international airports, they're really good, but I tend to fly small general aviation aircraft. Doing a run up here to check the prop and the mixture and make sure everything's good. Oh yeah, that prop is working. That constant speed prop can really drop that RPM. Looking good though. Kind of an abbreviated pre-flight check here because normally I'd do a little bit more before takeoff if I was in the simulator, and I'd do a lot more, of course, when I fly a real plane as well. I'd like to really make sure I'm safe, but in this case, we're here to get some footage for you and give you an idea of what this Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 can do. We'll get out on the runway. I don't think I'll take a whole lot of time to line up, and we'll just power it up and get going here. But I do like to taxi nice and slow and careful. This is good practice for when you're flying your real plane, so I must admit, although it's not a complete training aid, and certainly if you can fly in Flight Sim 2024, does not mean you should go get in a real plane and fly. But on the other hand, it does help keep your senses sharp and get you in the habit of things. So if you do things the right way in the flight simulator, you'll do things the right way when you get out in the real world in your little Cessna or Mooney or Bonanza. And yes, most every plane that you would want is available if it's not already included in Flight Simulator. As we get rolling here, I'm going to try and keep us down the center line. I'm glad you're getting a nice exterior view though. This Mooney needs to build up a little bit of speed, so it takes a little more runway than a lot of my STOL planes. I like to fly Piper Cubs and stuff like that don't take nearly as much runway or nor as much speed. We're getting light on those wheels now, and we're ready to take off. There we go. We're going to get that gear up right away on this particular one. We still have one notch of flaps in there too that we'll take up in a few seconds here. Now Sedona is a little bit off to our left. It's probably 151 heading, I think, but I'll turn left here and get us heading out that direction momentarily. Just want to make sure we've got a good rate of climb and we're stable. Don't want to turn instantly, and it's not a good habit to turn the minute you take off, that's for sure. And we'll get you over there. start heading that direction. Now you may notice I have waypoints turned on so you can see different airports and stuff in the distance with the banner above them and a blue pin where they are located. You don't have to do that. You can turn it off. You can also do even more. You can literally have Flight Simulator show you in the air the path you need to take, but I find that takes me out of the realism an awful lot doing stuff like that. Boy, those trees look beautiful outside, don't they? This is far better than the old simulators I started with. And I started back on a monochrome monitor that could only portray amber colored lines on a black background. And it still gave me a feeling like I was flying, and I liked it, but it was nothing like this, that's for sure. Instrument panel was just a bunch of dials with notchy looking little gauge levers. They looked horrible. But this is beautiful. You'll notice too, the engine sounds different depending on your view. When you come around front, it'll get louder, and when you're around the back, it's a little quieter. I'll let you enjoy the scenery for a moment, and I'll stop talking. This part of Arizona has a nice forest up here. It's still thin enough that you can go walking through it. Not very brushy like you'd have down around Houston or Louisiana or even Oklahoma. It's much more spread out. A lot of big pines, junipers, stuff like that. And we do have some large herds of elk here. And before I get to Sedona, or just around Sedona or a little after that, there are herds of pronghorn as well. Little side note, pronghorn are actually deer, even though we call them pronghorn antelope. They're not technically an antelope, but you're not here for that probably. I love looking out the windows. I just love the view in this. And I love the fact that they finally got it right. Microsoft Flight Simulator is kind of, it's a mixed bag. They used to be awesome because they were the only thing there was. I'm just checking here to make sure I've got my prop and power settings correct. Manifold pressure, prop. There's our 6-pack. Airspeed, attitude, altitude, and all that stuff. But yeah, they used to have a lot of problems, but they were initially so awesome because they were the only ones. And to be honest, I don't think it was a big concern of them making simulators. So as time went on, third-party companies, other companies started making really good simulators, and Microsoft kept trying to make their simulator as though it was a part of Microsoft Office or something. It was as if they were making a business program. And as much as I understand that, the simulation wasn't as good, and it took a lot of computer to run it smoothly at all. Now you'll notice some notchiness in this. That's my recording. The actual simulation doesn't have that notchiness whatsoever. But when I record it, doing both at one time, my computer probably it just gets a little bit notchy there. Not so much that you can't enjoy the recording, but certainly not as smooth as it is when I'm actually flying. There's our pilot, and if you notice, we also have a passenger in there as well. Microsoft adds her in. There is a way to get rid of her to where you don't see her, or to change her to a guy, or do a lot of different stuff with your passenger. You can even change your looks as well. That person in there looks nothing like me, and I do have in fact, if I step out of the plane and we're walking around, I can view myself, and I look a lot like myself. But the guy in the plane, it just reverts to the standard guy. Pardon me. As we fly here, you notice we're getting less and less of the big trees, and the forest is becoming a little more desert-like as we get closer to Sedona. Boy, that Mooney sounds beautiful, doesn't it? She banks so smooth and effortlessly. Flies really good. This one, I've had the experience, thankfully, of flying a Mooney a few times in real life, and this one flies quite a bit like a Mooney in real life. There's probably some Mooney pilots out there that fly theirs frequently and can tell you everything this one does. It's not quite exact, but for my buck, it's pretty close to the real thing. Feels very, very similar. Now, while I'm showing you some of these views out the windows, let me mention that Flight Simulator, Microsoft finally got to where they had outside companies helping with Flight Simulator, so they were able to get the graphics a lot more smooth, and you didn't need the highest end graphics in the world to get it to run smooth. It still helps, don't get me wrong, but it'll run smooth with or without. And all the knobs and stuff in here are pretty much, you can interact with them. If you notice, I can turn on the vent up there. If I want, I can bring the sunshade down. It even has some writing on it. It'll give you your V speeds and stuff right there, just like you'd have in the pilot's operating handbook. But everything in the instrument panel is giving you correct readings. You can you can tune in VORs and navigate to them with your navigation radio, and the dials will do as they would in real life. Oh, it looks like we got little puddles of water out there. Must have had some rain recently. This part of Arizona is obviously a little bit more wet than down south where I live in the desert. But yeah, everything works. You can set your transponder code, same as you would in a real airplane. The Garmin instruments there work as they would in a real airplane. So it's become very, very good. And I hate to say it, but it actually can be a training tool in some ways. It doesn't replace good flight training, but it gives you the feel of it. It gives you practice with it, and you can make mistakes up here that you don't want to make in a real plane, right? And it's just an awful lot of fun. I stop short of calling it a game because to me, the way I use it, it's a simulation, and I really try to simulate flying. These are some of the things this pad can show you here. All the different things it shows. It even gives you the way the plane can start up. Different settings in there. But I do use it as a simulation, so to me it's a simulation. If you wanted to play it as a game, I guess you could consider it a game, but for me, I get a lot of fun out of making sure I've set my comm radios correctly, done all of that. By the way, here's an EFB you can pull up, and you can set this anywhere on the screen, as you can see. I kind of like to set it off to the right here because then I get my view out that left window the way I like. But I've got it set showing Sedona. There it is, my arrival airport. And I can zoom in and out, and I can file a flight plan through here. And the air traffic control in Flight Simulator can help with that flight plan, and they'll guide you along it. However, I use the Say Intentions third-party app. It is much, much nicer. The air traffic control understands whatever I say and can respond to it. I can even ask air traffic control questions that wouldn't normally be asked by pilots, and they will answer me. There's artificial intelligence that is in that, and it does a very, very good job of understanding what you're asking, what you're saying, and helping you. But they do a very good job too of being true air traffic control. They can give you IFR clearances. They can tell you if you need a heading to the airport, they can give you vectors to the airport. Wow, that Mooney's beautiful, isn't it? That is one sleek airplane. And I'm not really into fast airplanes, but it's just a pretty airplane, a beautiful design. To be honest, I fly VFR, visual flight rules. I don't fly instrument flight rules, IFR. So the IFR training in this, though, I think would be very good for those who do fly IFR. It would at least keep you in it when you can't routinely fly, right? But for me, VFR flying is great. It costs a lot less than the $140 an hour I pay for a rental airplane. And it kind of keeps my mind in the game, keeps me thinking. Every once in a while, I'll do a practice emergency landing, something like that. And I'm just looking at how beautiful that plane is from the front. It's sleek. A few years ago, we didn't have Flight Sim 2024. We had 2020, and the graphics were very good, but I think 2024 has finally surpassed 2020. And they are able to show a lot of things now that are not available in 2020. So I think they, in my opinion, have finally surpassed. By the way, I don't normally fly this low in real life, but I thought skimming the treetops would give you a little bit better view of those trees. Normally I'd be up probably about 2,000 feet higher just to have a little extra time and room, and engine goes out. You've got time to find a place to land, better glide distance, right? Yeah, everything about this flight sim is worthy now. It still has its glitches and flaws here and there. There are still a few things that aren't working quite the way they should. But for the most part, the realism is really there. It really is. And you can fly it as detailed as you want, as true to life as you want. Or you can kind of hot dog around and try and do loops and rolls in a plane that's not supposed to be doing those things. And you will discover that a plane meant for loops and rolls does them a lot better than a plane not meant for them. Hey, there's a little pond over there, a little water retention going on, it looks like. Looks really pretty from up here. By the way, their water effects are incredible compared to what they used to be as well. They have done a great job with that. And yes, you can fly a seaplane. Just make sure you've got a good long patch of water when you're landing, because seaplanes don't land all that short and they don't take off short at all. So make sure you've got plenty of water just like you would in real life. Obviously, I think it goes without saying, but if I don't put the gear down before I land, it will damage the plane in the sim and show damage. Of course, the good thing is I could just reset it, but I would always be cautious enough, and I always do my pre-landing checks. Gumps check, right? Gas, undercarriage, mixture, prop, seat belts, and a little bit more on some other planes that have more complex systems. Look at those clouds, man. And this is not set on the highest settings at all. You can go much, much higher on settings than this. I just keep them down a little bit to keep it smooth, because I don't have the latest, greatest, top-of-the-line video card in this. And certainly it taxes the computer a little extra while I'm recording here as I'm flying, so that takes a little extra as well. These are some beautiful mountain passes on the way between here. And I've flown most of this area in real life, and it looks very similar. Now, I must say, I've got to mention that when Asobo, who worked with Flight Simulator on this one, you'll see their name everywhere associated with Flight Simulator. When Asobo got with Microsoft, or Microsoft requested Asobo, I guess, they made sure that they mapped the entire planet from pole to pole. The entire planet is mapped, and it's mapped as accurately as they could possibly do. They had an app, which I assume used artificial intelligence to do this, but they had an app that they figured out how to recognize from satellite photos trees and water and roads and trails and sidewalks and houses, and it simulated as best it could what it saw from satellite views. So they took thousands and thousands and thousands of satellite views, and it took years, but they piped them all into this, and they went through and checked it, spot checked it, to make sure it was putting the right amount of trees in an area the way it should. And even fauna, deer and elk, you'll see elk here in Arizona where they are. If you go to a place where there aren't elk, you won't see elk. If you go to Africa, you'll see the African wildlife there. Um, if you go south of North America down into South America, you'll see very different types of trees and foliage and stuff because it is done as best they could. It's not absolutely perfect, but it's pretty darn good. Every once in a while, you'll see a road that's supposed to bridge over a river and the road kind of goes through the river. Yeah, that does happen once in a while. But to be honest, when you're flying up at altitude, you don't notice those things. You only notice them if you're kind of hot dogging down near the ground level, or if you decide, like I do sometimes, to hop in a vehicle and drive around on the land. We're getting pretty close now to Sedona. It's just a little ways up ahead. Not that much further to go, but I didn't want to make it too short a trip. I didn't want to make it too long either. You'll have to pardon me while I drink some water here while I'm flying. Okay, it's coffee, I'll admit it. Any place that you see roads, there really are roads. And yes, you can fly over your house and you will see a house there. It may not look quite like your house, but it'll be a house there. Can't imagine with all the billions of houses on the planet that they get them all right, but they do their best to recognize it's a house and give it, windows and doors and the usual stuff. If you go into the more detailed airport scenery right around the runways and stuff, they're even more accurate about that. Because really, with Flight Simulator, that's what we're talking about. We need the elevation, like these hills below me are accurate in height. The altitude of these hills, the effects of altitude on the airplane are modeled accurately, as accurate as possible. Density altitude at high altitude airports on hot days, it happens. A little more water down there, I noticed. That's kind of cool. Looks like it must have had a rain fairly recently. But yeah, density altitude does affect your airplane's takeoff length and even landing length and your climb rate. So it is as accurate as we can get. Your mixture control, if you pull that back too far, it will kill your engine. And if you pull it to the right amount, it'll make you run nice and lean and save you some fuel and give you good power. Boy, that shiny paint job looks really good on this plane, doesn't it? And as you notice, I put my own custom tail number, 6163 Yankee. That's just the number I've gone by in all my simulations since the early 80s. 82, I'm going to guess, or 83, we had a simulator that, again, it was monochrome, had an amber monochrome monitor, and I had it over at a friend's house, and I used to spend hours and hours at his house. His parents probably thought I was spending more time at their house than I was at mine, but I was flying a simulator. And honestly, I don't remember if that one was made by Microsoft or who it was. It certainly didn't model the airplane in any real detail, but it had a stick and it was very rudimentary, and you could pull back and it would go up, and you could stall, and you could, the basics, the very basics. When you came into land, you had to know to slow down and get at a proper landing speed and flare a bit, but it gave you the extreme basics. This is much, much nicer now. You could even fly a flight in this before you go to fly it in real life. Fly it first in the flight sim, as you can see here. It'll show you your path. It can lay it out for you. You can look and see in real life if the airport's going to be easy to get into or not. At least give you some idea of it, right? Because you're going to look up, in real life, you're going to look up in the airport facility directory, which they just changed the name of recently, but that's beside the point. You're going to look up on the sectional chart. You're going to possibly, if you can, even call over to that airport, especially if you're flying into a private airfield, and get some details. But being able to fly it in the flight sim first gives you a little bit of forewarning of how it's going to look, what's going to happen. stuff like that. It's really hard to see this valley in here, this canyon to our left. Well, that canyon, I'm going to zoom in on that for you. Give me a second here. There we go. It's hard to see what that looks like looking on a chart. Of course, it shows, a dip and the terrain, but it really doesn't show it on a chart the way you'd see it here. So it really does help. Boy, that cloud looks beautiful coming over here. It's a great thing too in a simulator you can turn the clouds up to the point where you can't see anything out the windshield. It is just gray. And it's interesting to see how well you can fly when you have no visual reference whatsoever. And I wish more people had seen that before they got out and actually got into IFR conditions and got themselves killed and their passengers, because you need to be aware it's not as easy to fly in the clouds as people think it is. There's a lot more to it. This is where Sedona starts. This is this big valley here. Beautiful cliffs on the sides, and it drops down into this valley. Sedona Airport is on a little mesa at 4,500 feet up, 4,500 MSL, and it's probably about 500 feet, a little over that, above the rest of the town. So a lot of people call it an aircraft carrier in the desert, because it is. It's a little mesa up there. Boy, this valley's gorgeous. We're going to fly right in between those two mountains there at an altitude just above the one on the left, but probably a little lower than the one on the right. Again, that's a little lower than I would do in real life. There are a lot of tourists hiking around here, and you really don't want to disturb them with the sound of an airplane. A little bit of haze in the air too. You can change levels of all that. You can make things look quite a bit different. You can set the wind and weather to your liking. If you want to practice crosswind landings, just give yourself a 10-knot crosswind directly across the runway if you want. Or make it 5 knots, or make it, you can literally set it knot by knot. So you can do whatever speed of crosswind you want at whatever angle you want. Or you could even just turn on real world weather and it will do whatever's actually happening in that part of the world at that moment. Which is kind of nice to do, because you think, I could probably fly today. It's not that bad. Well, fly it in the flight sim and see if it's that bad. Gives you a little bit of an example. Not that that's the way to judge whether you're going flying that day or not, but better to try things in flight sim than to try them in real life, right? I'm descending here as we come down. There's the airport right there, right in front of us. So I'm going to have to descend and get some flaps in and some landing gear in. And then we'll enter the downwind at a 45-degree angle. So I'm going to fly over the top of the airport above their pattern altitude. And then I'll bring it around to the downwind leg. And we'll be landing on runway 21 today. There we go. Those flaps looking good. Gears coming down. Nothing like puffy clouds and a blue sky, right? Again, any notchiness you see is because I'm recording. While flying, I don't see any of that. Let me get you a view here of the runway. There we go. Let's look down upon it as it goes underneath us here. That's Sedona. All those hangars there. Off to the northwest side of the runway. And we're going to make a right-hand turn around here, and we'll try and line up for downwind. We'll fly downwind to that runway. Boy, beautiful, beautiful red rocks around Sedona here. And they are modeled fairly accurately, as I do go to Sedona quite a bit, and that's what they look like. Of course, they're more beautiful in person. Can't capture that kind of beauty even in a photograph or a video, but it gives you some idea of how pretty Sedona is, that's for sure. Here we are coming up on a downwind for that. Looks like I'm just a little low here today. I don't like being low, but we'll add a little power on the base and final if we need to, because it looks like we're going to have to. You can see how it's up on that mesa. I love how the rocks change color in the background there. There's a distinct line where they go from red to kind of a grayish color. I know you may be looking down thinking, wow, one of those houses would be nice to live right there. Yeah, they're a little pricey. Sedona is not a cheap place to live. It's pretty, but you pay for it. And unfortunately, there's more and more tourists every year, it seems, and it gets a little crowded. But if you can come on a weekday when it's not a popular tourist time, Sedona's great. It's gorgeous to go hiking, and there's trout fishing and tons of great things about Sedona. Adding a little power here as I'm coming in just a little bit low, so we're gonna keep it up a little longer than we should. In real life, I'd be very disappointed with this. It's too low, but we're gonna be fine. Now I'm a little fast, so I know I'm gonna land a little long, but that's okay. I've got enough runway to do it here at Sedona. But never be afraid to do a go around if you feel you have to. It's not anything to be ashamed of. Just letting it bleed off speed. It's going to plop down in a second here. Yep, here she goes. I felt it. Yep. Try and keep on that center line. Hope you're enjoying this flight. Or I should say, hope you enjoyed the flight, because I've already landed now, but hope you're enjoying it. I'll turn around and taxi back. There isn't an entryway to the runway back this far down. I don't usually land this far down, but kind of added a little more power than I meant to keep myself up, and I ended up adding speed. I'll turn right here. This plane turns real easy on the dime, so it's really not a big deal. And we'll go up here and take the first taxiway to the left. And again, I'm not doing the usual radio work I would be doing, or once I got off of there, I'd be calling out that I'm clear of taxiway, or clear of the runway, excuse me. Those trees are so well modeled compared to what they used to look like. If anybody watching this has seen Flight Sim back during FSX, or Flight Sim 10 as some people called it, it was not nearly this good at all. But computers have gotten better, and thank God Microsoft had partners, many partners, but Sobo amongst the primary there, that really helped make this better than anything Microsoft themselves could have ever done. Make sure we're all cleaned up after landing, and let's get taxiing down here and see if we can't find a parking spot. And we should get a little bit more on that line, because, come on, you don't want to be taxiing that far off the yellow line. There's a reason for that line. That line helps tell you that your wingtips are going to be clear of things. Of course, with this plane, our wingtips are clear by quite a bit. But as you can imagine, if we were flying a business jet or something, the wingtips would be sticking out a lot further. And you want to keep the nose on that line to make sure you got clearance between obstacles. Even the pavement on the taxiways and the yellow lines and stuff, so much better than they used to be. Now, there are a couple of other flight simulators out there, and they all have their fans. For my money, this one's the best right now. Has the most good quality add-ons, has the best scenery by default, has the whole world model. There's not an airport that you can look for that you won't find. They're on there. If it's a really tiny grass field type of airport, which I land at quite a few, and most of them are good, but every once in a while you'll find one that they, for some reason, modeled it. It's in there, but the runway is way bumpier than it would be in real life. But that's really not very common anymore. There's a lot of airports modeled correctly. The buildings may not be the same color. You know, if your hangar building is actually yellow or something, it may just make it that tan color, like most hangars are, or white, like a lot of hangars are. But, you know, you've got every airport in the world, in every country. It's not going to be perfect at every airport. You can't do that. But they do have the runway headings correct. Generally, as far as I've seen, the taxiways are actually where they are in real life. The taxiway names and the runway numbers are correct, so that's good. Now, as I fly, I don't normally get to pan around and see outside the airplane like you guys are seeing here, but you can do it if you want. You can fly, but of course, the minute you're looking at your plane from the outside, you don't see the instruments, and you're not seeing if you're climbing or descending, or if your engine's running too hot or something. You don't see that from the outside. So I always stay inside where I can get immersed in it as though I'm actually flying. And when I fly in real life, I can't see the outside of my airplane either. And I've never found that a problem. I hope to never see the outside of my airplane while I'm flying. As I bring this around, I'm parking in a jet area. One of the pluses of flying a flight sim instead of real life, right? I'm going to bring this around, and I'll go ahead and give you a good view of the baggage compartment and the door again, and even I'll show you our passenger there. Let me get this turned around and get this engine shut down and get all the switches off and make it secure so that we're not wasting electricity or energy, because if you leave your switches on and you park your plane, it'll be dead when you get back to it. And I have had a plane or two in flight sim that I left stuff on, came back, and it wouldn't start. So, boy, it's a pretty Mooney, though, with the Macaulay prop. It looks gorgeous. Let's give you a view of the passenger here and the baggage door area. And then I think our beautiful flight and tour are over. If you want to see more of these, like and subscribe, and we'll put out more of them. Be happy to do it for you. It's just something that I enjoy doing. Not here to make money off of it, but I enjoy it. Have a good day. Thanks.